precisely of what's happening in the U.S. So this is a short little engagement with a young former Canadian boy, brilliant kid.
What would you do if you were Prime Minister of Canada right now?
I would deport Justin Trudeau. That guy sucks. Canada's a real problem, man. I mean, because I would basically allow Alberta to become its own country.
I lived in Alberta too, so
yeah, Edmonton or
Calgary.
Yeah, the two best parts of Canada are Edmonton and Calgary. Beautiful country too. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Canada's a really screwed up country, and it's a self-hating country, as you well know, that prides itself on being polite. And this is a great lesson for those of us in the West, that your favorable characteristics of being polite, nice, and welcoming can also be your downfall. And you know that in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Super polite. Okay, we're just going to allow a bunch of foreigners over on our country. Super polite. We're not going to allow anyone. We're not going to have free speech. Canada's got a big problem. It does not have the Constitution. So you do not have robust free speech protections. You do not have Second Amendment protections. So the government is able to do whatever they want. I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister of Canada. I wouldn't last very long. But between Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, you have some of the most liberal cities on the planet, as you well know. Canada, I think, is bringing in like half of its population in the next decade in immigrants. It's just not sustainable.
I know.
And it's too bad. It was a once great country. Canada has fallen.
I know. I'm thankful that I moved here, though.
Do you have a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Oh, good for you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I was born in America, but then I moved to from California.
You won the lottery.
I know.
God bless you, man. Thank you.
All right. Kind of says it in a nutshell. You won the lottery, kid. But the way Charlie dissected that, he, absolute brilliance on identifying a couple of the most significant factors that we have to deal with up here. We don't have the protection of anything, and we're not allowed to protect ourselves. So the government can pretty much do whatever it wants. But every once in a while, we sneak one through. And that happened yesterday. So I don't know if you recognize this furry mug. This was a clip that I shot yesterday. It was really short. It was only like a minute, under a minute. But if you can see, 267,000 views, where I was just kind of, my head was literally reeling around what I had discovered in this video from TPV Sean. And so my first instinct when I come across controversial material, shall we say, or a material that exposes more or lets me know that the world is aware of what's going on here in Canada, I kind of snag that stuff and make sure that I get it and that I get it out as quickly as I can. So yesterday was kind of like, to make an analogy, it was like I was the first one at the scene of the crime. Basically, Sean had just put this out. I found it in less than an hour of him putting it out. I did this little video because my head was kind of spinning while I was grabbing this. I knew I was going to do something with it, but I was just discovering, first of all, I didn't even know that Diddy and Trudeau knew each other, let alone that they were, tight, like, tight together. And then I dissected it. But between the three videos, guys, and all of the work that you guys do sharing, this is why it matters, we have reached almost 800,000 people in 24 hours, and we've got about 3 more thousand people have joined our community on X. So shout outs to all the newcomers. This is probably why you're here. This isn't the first time that this has happened, but more often than not, I get deplatformed. I have lost more YouTube channels, several X accounts. I'm kind of struggling with that now. I've got 2 accounts. Which one do I grow? I'm leaving somebody behind on the older one. But this is the new one where all of this growth is happening, and we're building and developing and moving forward. But thanks to you guys, we're going to reach 1 million views on this video. And here's the thing. So, the reason I wanted to bring this up is I've reached out to Sean, the original content presenter. It's incredibly explosive, incredibly damning. I'm not going to play this again tonight. I want people to go over there. If you're not on X, or you aren't following me on X, but you are there, this is how many times do you smell smoke before you start looking for fire? This guy has been rocked with sex scandals his entire time in office. Sean puts a lot of that together in this video. There's a long legacy and history of this, as so when it comes to the most serious allegations in here, it's an audio recording of, like I said, I've reached out to Sean. I'm looking for more information. If and or when that should come, I will absolutely be bringing it out here first, foremost, and center. But I think that there's more to this than just what we're seeing. There always is, right? There's always something more with all of this crap. So if I put on my thinking cap and my tinfoil conspiracy cap, if I was on my way into the Oval Office or some significant position of power, how would I want to get rid of Justin Trudeau? Just let some of the truth out. That's all I would do. When you hear Justin's half brother, when you see his testimony in that video puts together that Sean did, it really does not leave a lot to the imagination for the allegations. And this is the point. We used to live in a country where an $18 glass of orange juice was shameful enough, was unethical enough to have somebody forced to resign from their seat in Parliament. How many of these smoke with no fire allegations and insinuations, particularly from other countries, if they know, how the hell are they supposed to take us serious at all? So I've been quizzed about this, whether I should report on this story or not. And people were trying to discourage me from talking about this. And I was like, no, it's my duty, I think, to bring this up into the discussion. How else are we supposed to understand when we see some of the new group of the coming administration and how they're addressing Canada, how they're talking about our fearless leader? And I'm talking about, even Governor Kristi Noem, you hear Tulsi Gabbard, all of these people in the U.S., they know all of this crap, right? So when this is start to being connected to P. Diddy, it's not just the Epstein that they managed to wipe under the carpet. It's everything else that they've managed to wipe under the carpet. All of these things that, so there, I get two camps. Why do you cover that trash? Well, there's an impact in Canada if other countries are making accusations like this. Don't you think we ought to know? That's kind of my take on this. I think we ought to know, right? And then there's the other take in it. Well, why bother? Teflon Don there, nothing sticks, nothing happens, nothing matters. Well, everything that's really thrown Trudeau under the bus prior to all of this was under the Biden administration. That's different. That's definitely different than the Trump administration. It's going to be a very different game in Canada. And the repercussions and ripple effects of all of this they're going to leave a mark, folks. They're absolutely going to leave a mark, and the longer we tolerate it, the more the guiltier we become in it, right? So these guys are, the U.S. is going to start having this kind of renaissance back to its roots. America first, great again. We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, in America, they are also kind of having a reformation, and it's not a crime to bless God in the United States. It's not a crime there for a meritocracy. It's not going to be a DEI, ESG, social credit system moving in there. And ethics matter. So when we see this this meat muppet swamp zombie, Mr. Trudeau, and his behavior and the disgrace and the questions and allegations, how can we even allow this man to occupy and have all of the privileges and luxuries that he has under even the suspicion of an $18? I mean, all of that. And Goldstein's right. How can we expect anything to change when the liberal lack of ethics starts at the top? Justin Trudeau sets the standard of ethical conduct. So, given his example, it's hardly surprising his ministers keep breaking the law, all the way down the echo chamber of power and enforcement is controlled by Justin Trudeau and his sick sycophants. And that's not going to stand. That's not going to be a friendly relationship with the upcoming administration. How do you think they're going to think? What do you think Trump thinks about this?
Yesterday, the organization chanted in our streets, in Canadian streets, death to Canada, death to the United States, and death to Israel. So this is a terrorist organization. Common sense conservatives are calling for the government under Section 83.03.
If we did that, wouldn't that be anti-Semitic?
Sam are doing it now. And let's bring
right. Like if anybody else did that, be anti-Semitic. Why is it not? Oh, because it's supposed to be there. It's supposed to create division. It's supposed to keep our attention away from what really matters.
Terrorists out of our country. And let's stand up for what's right once again. Stand with our allies against terrorism and for decency. Let's bring home the country.
No, I'm not going to play the campaign slogan at the end. That's not why I want to bring this up. I don't endorse any party or any politician, not one of them. I am 100% an independent orphan of the political system, every last one of them. But when they say things that matter, I have to talk about it. Talking about it is not an endorsement. And unfortunately, I have to say that on this platform. So this is, when those kinds of things that our leader of our opposition that's recognized in the world space is addressing those things, literally in as Canadians, we see this every day, basically, and we don't see a lot of pushback on it, but it's starting to happen. This was a clip that I came across a couple of days ago, so it didn't make it into the news yesterday, but just a quick to let you know, an FYI, that there was some arrests made in Calgary over the weekend for these people doing their shenanigan shit on the streets of Calgary, and also now in Australia. So this is a good thing to see that some of these interventions are starting to happen, because these blatant displays and calls for action of terrorism that are on our streets, that doesn't make it very appealing for a world leader like that's going to be taking over in the the greatest superpower on earth very soon. And there's really only one guy to blame, and we all know it. we started off with some of the shadier side of that character, but Brian Lilly
On a
makes
bit
it
of
to
a
the show.
Let's blame everyone else tour right now. He's down in Brazil talking about the carbon tax and saying, no, it's great for everyone. It's just misinformation and disinformation out there. He's got his justice minister talking about how bail. Well, really, the problem is the provinces. And now he's also put out this video on immigration, claiming, hey, it's not his fault. It's greedy corporations and schools.
In the last 2 years, our population's growing really fast, like baby boom fast. Increasingly, bad
Whoa.
actors like
Sorry, I just have to pause that for just a second because that was as far as I got the original time when I tried to watch it, and I was triggered. He is literally trying to sit down there like the overlord and explain to us like we are dumber than a sack of smashed hammer handles that, oh, our population grew so fast because it's like baby boom fast. You insulting, condescending meat muppet. Every statistician in the world is talking about our birth rates dropping. This is the invasion that this meat muppet started. So I just had to get that little rant out of my system over this video. And that's kind of why I played this clip, because I thought I'd let Brian digest this for you guys all rather than play you the whole clip. I just couldn't do that, and I couldn't inflict such cruel and unusual punishment on you guys as to make you listen to that entire 6-minute video of Trudeau being exactly, oh, kids, please leave the room. So have your parents leave the room so I can groom you some more. Kind of just creepy. If he was bald, he'd remind me of that, other ghoul gremlin from the World Economic Forum, Noah Harari.
fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests.
Let's make one thing clear. Justin Trudeau and his government were the only people in charge of the immigration system over the last 9 years. Sure. Did schools say they wanted more foreign students? Absolutely. Did companies say they wanted more workers in the temporary foreign worker program? Absolutely. But you know who had to approve those? The Trudeau government. That's who. So this idea that it is not the government's fault, it's just a complete lie. It's Trudeau trying to find a way out of bearing any responsibility for the policy decisions that he and his government made. You shouldn't believe it now or ever.
100% correct. We've been, we covered here over the last little while the deals, the backroom deals. It breaks the law, but they will allow slave labor for Lululemon and these kinds of companies because they like Peter Nygaard and the Fashion Mogul and all of these guys, because they're monsters and they play the crime syndicate and they create all of this, and he won't take up the most molecular level of responsibility for his party. The emperor's new suit kind of thing. And meanwhile, even the National Post is calling him out. This is from a couple of days ago, I guess the 15th, where John Iverson says, Canada's rolling out the red carpet for radical Islam. Western democracies are not pushing back on violent Muslims who seek to dismantle our way of life, says author Yasmin Muhammad. And I think I should still be, I had a spot highlighted where I guess I lost that part, but here it is. We are rolling out the red carpet, and if anybody tries to say anything, then that person is demonized as an Islamophobe or a racist or a bigot or whatever, just for speaking up against what any normal, decent human being would be speaking up against. So it's literally somebody that understands what is here and what is happening that's calling them out. But don't worry. Melanie Jolie has a plan, and the CBC has a nice message for everybody, for these people that 4 out of 5 are. Well, I'll just play it, and then we'll talk.
If there's one thing I know about Canadians, it's that we're kind. We want to help.
Doesn't take a big star or millions of dollars.
All it takes is one can, $1, or even 1 hour of your time.
In every corner of this country, people give to their friends, to their families, to total strangers.
And this season, we will give again.
That's the thing about this place we call home.
It's kindness
It connects us, brings us together.
And makes us stronger.
It's who we are. It's what we do.
We're going to keep doing it.
Help us make the season kind. Find ways to give to food banks in your community at cbc.ca/kind.
They want more. They want more from you, folks. 2 million people visits to the food banks. 4 out of 5 of them are newcomers. CBC is giving out billions of dollars, getting billions of dollars, giving out millions of bonuses to each other. And, it's just, and he's trying to put the blame on us, right? He's trying to pretend that he doesn't have a hand in any of this. So we're going to skip around a little bit, but I had to play this. I had to play this clip for you guys. We're going to take a little bit of a trip around the world and see what a couple of other countries think about what's going on here. And Australia is always interesting to get their take on what they think of Mr. Trudeau. And we're going to talk about this in just a couple of minutes. This is going to be it's going to be a long show tonight, guys. It's going to be the bonus show, so make sure you get a drink. But I'll put my thoughts together while we go through this. But yeah, you're going to enjoy some of the flavor of Trudeau-mania around the world. Remember when he first came into office? Oh, he has such nice hair. Everybody in the world knew him like he was an actor, and they've busted out all of the propaganda bigwigs and faces and plastered CBC all over it to try and get more from you, And you know who it is that they're asking for more for, right? So let's see what Australia.
Where after 9 years as Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau's approval rating has plummeted from the 63% way back in his heyday when he was first elected to just 23% in June of this year. It's continued to tumble. So with an election breathing down his neck coming up just next year, he's decided to back off on the record immigration his government has seen pour into Canada. Here he is saying, look, we could have acted faster, but I'm making a move now, so vote for me next year, people.
In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. Increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
So he's decided, better crack down on this, because all the polls in Canada are showing for the first time in a quarter century, the vast majority of Canadians are saying we've had enough with these record levels of immigration. And this guy just wants to get re-elected. Here is the head of the opposition, which I certainly hope will be the PM next year, Pierre Poilievre. He's taking Trudeau to task, saying, mate, You're the cause of the problem. Stop blaming these third-party actors. Oh, it's just bad people exploiting the system. Listen to what Pierre has to say and ask yourself, doesn't this sound like he's describing our government, the Labor government, the Albanese government, to a T?
Let's not turn our gaze away from the source of the problem, which is Justin Trudeau, who increased our population growth by 300% in a matter of a couple of years. By his admission, this isn't me, allowed massive fraud in international students, temporary foreign workers, and the refugee system. By his own admission, the Liberal immigration policies have caused massive housing, job, and healthcare shortages. And now he's basically denouncing his entire immigration policy and expecting us to believe that he can fix the problems that he caused.
Wow, massive housing, job, and healthcare. Wow, it just reminded me so much of here back at home. But the amount of damage Pierre's going to be able to do at the polling booth next year on this issue, and we've seen this across the West. It was the case in the UK, but not so much. They just voted for change and they're not going to get it anytime soon. It was certainly successful in the US. Trump used that as a battering ram, and rightly so. I think Pierre, this is going to be another bastion of his campaign against Trudeau, because it goes without saying, all the polls are already showing this is what the people want, and which Canadians are going to be dumb enough to believe that the guy who created the problem is going to be the guy to fix it.
Do you think we can put this down to the Trump effect a little bit?
Perhaps. I mean, Pierre has already been called very much a Trumpian figure. He's very famous for chewing on apples while talking to reporters, questioning them on their questions, getting them to trip all over themselves. So he's very much already seen as a very Trumpian figure. But again, I think this is, and we've talked about across the EU as well, this is played out beautifully in the Netherlands, in Hungary, in Poland. All the parties that say we are running on an anti-immigration policy because we've been flooded and we're absolutely sick of it, those are the guys getting voted in.
I just love the gaslighting by Justin Trudeau. I mean, the way he sort of sits down in the chair, he's the guy who's just set fire to every house in the street. And then he calls everyone together for a chat about fire safety. It's just incredible the front that he has. And of course, if you criticised his immigration policy, you were denounced as a racist. And this is another thing that has a commonality right across the Western world. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that our own Laura Tingle accused Peter Dutton of stirring up racism by daring to suggest that high immigration was putting pressure on housing. And Laura Tingle imagined that people are going to go down to, bid on a home or apply for a rental, and they're going to see someone of a different skin colour and automatically blame them for the fact that you can't get that dwelling in Sydney or wherever. And so we've been denounced as racists for pointing out what Justin Trudeau is now saying, well, actually, we do have an issue, but don't worry, having caused the problem, now you can trust me to fix it.
Which would be to say that the majority of Canadians are racist. Now, I'm sure Trudeau may well believe that, and certainly some people on the left would believe that, but all the polling does now show that the majority of Canadians believe that immigration is too high. I'm generally willing to give politicians credit when they admit they get things wrong, but on this count, I have to say,
it's totally self-serving.
It's the most obvious economic principle: supply and demand. What do you think is going to happen when you increase demand significantly when you don't have the supply to keep up with it? You end up with housing crises. You end up with cost of living crises. On and on it goes. You end up with a lower standard of living. Justin Trudeau, even the person with the lowest IQ on the planet, could work out the most basic stuff.
That's Justin Trudeau.
I'll give him a little more credit than that because he is a communist. You do need a couple of braces to understand communism to begin with. But he should have been able to see this coming. Any Western leader should have been able to see this coming. Anthony Albanese should have been able to see this coming. The reason that Trudeau, like Albanese, jacked up immigration so much was to fudge the economic numbers, because they know that if they didn't have...
Remember that manufactured destabilization that I've been talking about since 2021? The Cloward-Piven strategy, the migration compact that became that Cloward Piven strategy playbook. At least Australia's news commentators got it.
Such massive population growth in the last few years, they likely would have gone into recession. We've been in effective recession for a long time, but the numbers don't show we're in recession because we keep propping it up with the population figures, right? And then he goes to an election. Oh, no, it's not popular. I better walk it all back. Good luck.
I agree with everything you just said, except, you give him a bit of grace because maybe he's a politician who genuinely is admitting, what we got it wrong. But that was a 7-minute video,
Trudeau,
right?
genuinely admitting he got it
Well,
wrong.
I'm just saying it's a 7-minute video, and within 10 seconds he's saying unscrupulous colleges, businesses taking advantage. I don't think he was really admitting much fault.
It's rather funny though, because for the longest time, he's called everyone who opposed this mass immigration to Canada racist. So you got to ask yourself, does this make you a racist now? You're amongst the people that you have opposed for so long.
And sums it up exactly. When are these guys going to look at themselves and accept the fact that they are the racists in the room and they are the systemic problem? And it's pretty bad when we've got, I don't want to say it's not mainstream media, but we've got media and allegations coming out of every English speaking corner of the planet against this meat muppet swamp zombie. And one of the biggest reasons we're not going to even get a chance to cast a vote on this unless we raise enough of a public relations scandal in demanding. I got the troll on Rumble, guys. Yeah, he only got a couple away, but they slammed it. There was like 5 posts in a second, a nasty bot troll. It was kind of weird, kind of bizarre. It was kind of like we're getting the good stuff now. So make sure you guys give us a thumbs up, guys, so that we can make sure that we can trigger one of my bad habits is telling people that make your own day, melt a snowflake. Well, apparently we got one here today, but he's cleared out. We got good mods over on Rumble as well. But so why are we right now in Canada, unless we rise up in a popular demand for this sexual deviant, or even the allegations of our prime minister being a sexual deviant should be cause for removal, and every single elected official in our country should be on top of that. I mean, who gives a shit about a carbon tax election at this point? Make it a moral and ethics election and get this monster out of office, right? But why can't we do that?
Notice the following pattern. This guy said, if you follow Canadian politics, you will have noticed the following pattern. This guy says something along the lines of how the Liberal government is a corrupt, incompetent plutocracy that is ruining the country. And then he props them up anyway in the House of Commons. This happens basically every week. One possible explanation for all this is that the NDP doesn't have enough cash. Their last financial statements showed that they had just $290,000 in cash. In a month-long campaign that would barely cover the travel expenses just for the leader and his entourage, they fundraised about $2.6 million since then, but a lot of that's gone to paying down debt. See, they were also broke the last time an election was called, so they took out a $20 million loan that they've only just come close to paying off. So people are donating to the party, but at least for the last few years, a lot of that money has just gone into debt repayment and interest charges.
So, how long would it take? This is a legit question, guys. If we put together, we would need some major help, but we could literally put together a coalition of volunteers to promise a membership and get enough people together to literally go and buy out the NDP party and still save money on that meat muppet ever getting a pension in this in this country. right? That's how absurd, and the extortion that's going on in this, that's allowing this evil sexual. I can't. I don't want to make specific allegations. I kind of like my show. I kind of like talking to you guys. I kind of, don't have an interest in jail or prison. But that might not be our biggest concern, given what another Meat Muppet Swamp Zombie. There's an epidemic of them. They masquerade as world leaders. They all have the same Nero complex, it seems. Here's a couple more right here. But what does, this is an article from AP News, what does Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use longer range U.S. weapons means? What does it mean? We're going to find out, because Ukraine fired 6 U.S.-made ATACMS missiles at Russia's Bryansk region, Moscow said Tuesday, in what would be Kiev's first use of that weapon inside of Russia. Now, this is a very, very serious escalation. Russia basically had 2 red lines, and that was one of them. And bluffing with a Russian, well, that's just not good tactical advice on any point at any time. But I think that the best excuse for that is what Donald Trump Jr. has been stating, and this is from the Insider. I'm not familiar with this outlet at all. This is from yesterday, where Donald Trump Jr. accuses Joe Biden's admin of trying to start World War III before his father can take office. This was something that, we had addressed early on, and kind of expected it as a possibility. The political way to say, we told you so, right? Unfortunately, we saw that coming. But hopefully there's more at play than just a senile old man. Before we get into that, I do want to say that there is even people within the Democratic Party that are pushing incredibly hard and fast to have Joe removed. I don't know what that means. This is going to be a developing situation, but at the end of the day, everything happens by the choices we make. Everything that we do, it's how we react to things that determines how they end up. And how Putin reacts to this is going to determine a lot of how this turns out. It's a complex situation. Justin Trudeau has been all on board. Justin Trudeau was one of the early adopters of telling Zelensky to use these weapons. Keir Starmer is busy putting into play authorization to go nuclear against Russia. This is a dramatic, when we talked about the, petulant, dangerous children that could wreck and blow up a lot of shit before Mr. Trump makes it into office in his administration. Well, unfortunately, that kind of seems to be the trajectory the petulant meat muppets have chosen to go down. And I don't know how this turns out. And at the end of the day, there's only 2 things that we can control as individuals. There's lots that we can do. Number 1 is pray. And number 2 is, if you wake up in the morning, be grateful, be thankful, go forth in bravery, and do something more than nothing. Otherwise, we end up all end up in the same grave. So the world doesn't want this. These petulant, narcissistic egomaniacs that are all afflicted with this Nero disease. They would rather rule over the ashes than allow anybody else to rule. This is a situation that we find ourselves in, but Mr. Trump has a different plan. This is from India. Interesting, one of the things that I do is I kind of pay attention all over the planet because I want to hear from others what's going on. I think I covered that already. So here's India chiming in on Mr. Trump's hit list as it's identified.
Our top story is about Trump's hit list. Number one on his hit list is Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky. Number two is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And EU, well, that's on Trump's wish list. Here's what I mean. Trump's election victory, it's put both Ukraine and Canada under the spotlight. While Ukraine's reliance on American support to defend against Russia could face unexpected strain under Trump, Canada could be drawn into renewed trade tensions and defense disputes under Trump 2.0. Meanwhile, Europe watches closely as Trump's foreign policy promises a new twist in America's relations with the world. What are these twists? Let's do a deep dive. Let's start with Ukraine. While Zelensky praised Trump's impressive win on election night, there's skepticism over whether Trump will extend the same generosity as far as military assistance to Ukraine is concerned. Trump has repeatedly promised that he can end the war in Ukraine. He's gone as far as promising to end the war within a day. But there's little clarity on what that would mean for Kyiv, and the implications are heavy. Would the new Trump administration pressure Zelensky to accept a quick but costly deal with Russia? Experts say it's quite possible. They say the new Trump-led White House might withhold military support to push Ukraine towards making concessions. And to that, the fact that Zelensky and Trump have had a difficult history and the anxieties only increase. You see, back in 2019, a controversial phone call between the two sparked impeachment proceedings against Trump. In it, Trump allegedly pressured Zelensky to investigate his political rivals by withholding aid. Although they appeared cordial in a meeting later that year, Trump has since blamed Zelensky and outgoing President Joe Biden for the war in Ukraine. That's without mentioning Putin. This is why some analysts say that Trump's return could bring setbacks to Ukraine's fight against Russia. As far as Russia is concerned, a Trump victory could be seen as a potential opening for Russia to press its advantage, especially if US military support to Ukraine wanes. Trump's apparent desire for a rapid deal could make the situation even more precarious for Kyiv. As the war situation in Ukraine grows more intense, President Vladimir Zelensky is said to be worried. Reports suggest that he fears that when Trump will take charge in January, the steady stream of US weapons and financial aid might stop, leaving Ukraine vulnerable against Russian forces. Remember, we're now looking at a very different America, a Trump America that may not be willing to provide the same support that Ukraine has received under Biden. For Zelensky, that raises the stakes. Could this be the end of the gravy train of US weapons and money? Meanwhile, outgoing President Joe Biden is rushing to send arms to Ukraine as if he's bracing for a drastic policy shift. What does that say about America's support for Ukraine? Does Biden expect Trump to cut back on aid when he takes the chair? Could it be Biden's last-ditch effort to shore up Ukraine's defenses? Does he anticipate that Trump may cut back on American aid? All signs point to it. As far as Europe is considered, its leaders are worried. After all, Trump has made some bold declarations. Trump's ambition to end the Ukraine war could become his defining foreign policy move. Trump has suggested that he will speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In fact, on Sunday, a Washington Post report did say that a call had already taken place between the US president-elect and Russian president. But by afternoon on Monday, the Kremlin denied this report, calling it completely false and fiction. Kremlin said that no such communication had taken place between Trump and Putin.
I just want to give a little bit of my thinking behind this. I know that this is kind of comical for some, and it's not necessarily not the most trusted outlet. And that's not why I share it. The reason I share these is because these are the people that are doing the most programming to the greatest audience. When I share something that comes from within our community and it has a small reach and it's us, it's for information, those kinds of things. that's great. That's for our education. When I'm sure something like this, it's like watching the CBC. What is the rest of the population getting programmed with? What are they being told? What is their information? What are we up against in the minds of the people of the, on the streets? And in the world's largest English-speaking democracy of India, this reaches a lot of people. A lot of millions of people, and a lot of those millions of people are exactly the people that we're kind of are connected to the people that we're kind of having some issues with up here in Canada right now, aren't we? Right? So I think it's kind of interesting, even if it sounds funny sometimes, but to pay attention to the propaganda from everywhere, because it all makes an impact.
Raising several questions on the table. Earlier, I spoke with Russian affairs analyst Fred Weir on what this means. Listen to this.
I think there are a lot of red flags in this story, and the biggest one is the nature of the Kremlin denial. It's absolutely airtight and categorical. Often in these matters, two sides of dispute or random or some other details. In this case, the Kremlin spokesman said it never happened. It's pure fiction. Now, that's extremely unusual because there's no reason why Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States, shouldn't call up Putin, talk about things, and Putin has said he congratulated on his victory and said that he's ready to talk. So there's nothing wrong with the idea of them having a conversation. So I think we're probably dealing with some disinformation.
Now, we don't know if a call did take place between the two, but even if Trump and Putin discuss a peace deal and it happens without Ukraine's involvement, what will that mean for Ukraine's future? Remember, Trump has in fact suggested that he will speak with Putin. He's also repeatedly vowed to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. It sounds decisive, but here's the question. Does this plan serve American interests or Ukrainian interests, or could it in fact play directly into Russia's hands? Remember, Trump won't be inaugurated until January. He would still need to assemble his cabinet, which in itself is a complex task. Will Putin or Zelensky even be ready to negotiate peace by then? It's too soon to say. Let's turn our attention to Canada now. Trump's return to power could mean a tough road ahead for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Remember, Trump's policies disrupted US-Canada relations in the past, challenging long-standing alliances and trade partnerships. Now, as Trump reasserts his America First ideology, Canada's economic reliance on the United States makes it especially vulnerable. According to reports, Canada sends about 75% of its exports to the United States. And Trump's proposed 10% tariff on imports that's already raised alarm in Ottawa. After Trump's victory, Trudeau congratulated Trump, calling for a strong friendship between the two countries. But privately, Trudeau's administration is reportedly preparing for what could be an even more challenging period. According to analysts, Canada may face trade wars, demands for increased defense spending, and cross-border issues that could stress its economy. Also, let's not forget that Trump has previously criticized Trudeau. He's called Trudeau a far-left lunatic and two-faced. Trudeau also appeared to mock Trump during a meeting of NATO leaders in 2019. For now, officials from Trudeau's party are reportedly treading carefully, wary of any statements that might provoke Trump and complicate ties further. But beyond economics, a new Trump administration could put Canada's defense strategy under scrutiny as well. As a NATO member, Canada might be pressured to increase military spending, shifting focus from domestic priorities. We've spoken about this. Experts warn that if Trump's isolationist approach strengthens, Trudeau government could be caught between competing global powers. What's more, Trump's proposed mass deportations of undocumented immigrants could also have consequences, driving more migrants towards Canada and straining its housing and social services. Former Immigration Minister Jason Kenney has already warned of a potential crisis that could test Canada's refugee policies. Evidently, the coming months will test Trudeau. Behind the scenes, Trudeau is facing an uphill battle politically. Polls suggest he will lose to a conservative challenger, that's Pierre Poilievre, in an election set for within the next year. Plus, there is domestic issue of economic challenges, diplomatic rows. I'm talking about Canada's rows with China and India. All these issues together mean that any disruptions from US policy will only magnify the issues Trudeau faces at home. Ultimately, as Trump prepares to assume power, the stakes grow for these leaders. Will Trump's America First agenda leave allies with fewer options? Or will it lead them into making unprecedented concessions? For Zelensky and Trudeau, the clock is ticking on decisions that could reshape the course of their country's futures.
Well, I hate to say it, they weren't really wrong on a lot, even if it was a little more awkward than we're used to. But they're trying to make Trump's life hell. Trudeau is going to... I don't know whether he's already playing that game of trying to make Trump's life hell before he gets into office. But either which way, it's not very smart. It's like Dumb and Dumber between Zelensky and Trudeau and the rest of these neocon meat muppets. And it's not like Canada doesn't have any bigger issues, right? It's not like we've got an invasion going on in our own country here right now, right?
Which is a felony.
Tom Homan has been tapped by Donald Trump to carry out the largest mass deportation in U.S. history. But the former acting director of ICE is not only focused on the southern border. Canada is also a concern.
It's an extreme national security vulnerability on the northern border, and it's one of the things I'll tackle as soon as I'm anywhere else.
Homan made the comments in an interview with WWNY, a local news station in New York, his home state. Homan added, Canada needs to understand it can't be what he called a gateway to terrorists. Last September, a Pakistani citizen was arrested in Quebec, allegedly about to cross the border to carry out an attack on Jewish people in New York City.
We're not prepared, and Canada has not taken border security seriously for a little over a decade now.
Canada's immigration minister says he looks forward to speaking to Homan directly.
Again,
when it comes to
on purpose,
our southern border and the U.S.'s northern border, you see there the alignment of interests and making sure that it is safe, that it is secure.
No.
Have seen northern crossings, particularly between New York and Quebec, surge. And those numbers are only expected to increase when Trump takes office.
There may well be a stampede towards the northern border that would be somewhat greater than what we saw in 2017.
And Pete, the thing that people don't realize is how much these immigrants have received just as much propaganda as we have. And the propaganda that they've received is that we're to blame for their homeland's problems. And the problem is, they're right. We are to blame for allowing our government to do what it's done.
They got a plan, right? They got a plan. They got a plan. Melanie Jolie promised we got a plan, right? Because Mr. Homan means business. And he's been very clear, if you pay attention and you listen to what he's been talking about and who they've been arresting or apprehending coming across the border, and knowing that it's going to run the other way.
And its border with the United States. Illegal immigration by Indians into the United States has skyrocketed to raising alarms on both sides. New data by the U.S. Border Patrol reveals that over 43,000 Indians were detained at the U.S.-Canada border. And during this period, approximately 10 Indians were arrested every single hour while attempting to cross into the United States.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection made over 14,000 arrests of Indian nationals attempting to cross the northern border over the past year. Indian nationals compose about 60% of all arrests made along the northern border, more than 10 times the number of arrests made 2 years ago.
Now, the surge reflects a broader issue. In fact, Pew Research estimates over 725,000 undocumented Indians currently live in the United States, making them the third largest illegal immigrant population in the United States. But why are more Indians taking this perilous route as they leave Canada and head towards the United States? Experts point to a mix of factors, including political repression, rising extremism in Canada, and a long visa delay. In fact, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau even admitted that his government failed in cracking down on illegal immigration. Now, this comes almost 7 years after he promised to provide refuge to all asylum seekers coming into Canada.
Some saw that as a profit to game the system. We saw way too many large corporations do this. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, with more and more Indians fleeing Canada, Washington has put its border on high alert. Moreover, as Donald Trump is poised to return to the White House, he's promising an aggressive crackdown on immigration. Led by his border czar, Tom Homan, Trump's team plans sweeping changes targeting both illegal crossings and Biden-era legal programs. And as the situation escalates, one question looms. Will the migrant crisis of the U.S.-Canada border dent bilateral relations between the two countries?
What do you guys think? Do you think there's going to be a dent in bilateral communications between the U.S. and Canada, given the statesmen involved here in some of this? Well, I think this next headline kind of says it all, right? Buckle up. You see the look on her face? Buckle up for a second to Trump presidency. Former U.S. ambassador tells Canada, "We will be the best friend you've ever had if you get your house in order," former envoy says to Canada. What does that even mean, right? Trump's appointees have criticized Trudeau, warned of border issues with Canada. The entire all-star lineup of personnel that Trump has appointed kind of definitely all points to the same thing. And, you know, if you take a look at even just the smallest of percentages, and now you see the difference. And I guess take a pause here for a sec and talk about that. You know, the differences between the propaganda. U.S. News already talking about the Indians leaving Canada into the U.S., right? We're seeing they're already building tent cities here, and we're going to get into more of some of those things here a little bit further down the road. But already the mainstream mercenary narrative is turning against Canada, and it's definitely going to make us buckle up. And Trump's border czar says Canadian border is an extreme vulnerability. That should give Canadians pause for concern when our greatest ally uses a term like extreme vulnerability when they're describing Canada. And this is, I had something else picked up. Had it pulled up, I was going to share with you a statement that was recognized. I think it's this post here. Our media isn't talking about this. Pierre is barely talking about this. This is gonna be a real world impact. It is already. We have these sanctuary cities, or people watching here, you know, it's almost unlivable almost unlivable if you're what would fall into the category of old stock Canadian or old stock white Canadian. It's almost unlivable. And Canadian border city immigration lawyer expects big rise in asylum claims and illegal crossings. Why wouldn't we expect that? And the fear is, he says, is the U.S. doesn't care if people leave their country and come to Canada. Don't think for 1 minute this isn't part of the calculus that spares them the cost of removing them, and it shifts it over to Canada. So they're not going to do anything to prevent it from coming to Canada. And he's 100% on point with that. Trump didn't. He's a businessman. What's the cheapest, most efficient? Elon Musk. The Department of Government Efficiency, between him and Vivek. What's going to be the cheapest way for them to deal with this? Let him run to Canada, right? But Melanie Jolie promises she had a solution. She had an answer. They had a plan while she was in between snorts. She has a plan. We got a little bit of a look at that plan here yesterday. It came out. The Canada-U.S. border hours are to change at 35 ports of entry in the new year. I read through this, and it boils down to, 35 ports of entry are going to have between 1 to 5 less manned hours at the border and points of entry. The Americans this is not a part of their plan. This is her plan, their plan, Justin Trudeau's plan to streamline border crossings and labor costs and just shut it down. So that's, anywhere between an extra hour to 5 hours between stations for people to do whatever they got to do in that time and space, I guess, right? And the ones that are here, the ones that once they've been here 14 days, so all they have to do is get here, go undetected for 14 days. They get to be classified as refugees, or as a friend of mine that works in the employment agency industry is getting firsthand testimony that when they're flying into Canada, they're being told to change their status to refugee status. And this is why Jasmine's going to break it down a little bit. Don't let your hair catch on fire.
This might make you mad, but misery loves company. So,
Yeah.
tag, you're it.
Yep.
Why? Because we had a controlled, common sense immigration system that had worked for a century and a half, and Justin Trudeau came along and with reckless abandon totally demolished it. We will reverse the reckless, uncontrolled approach that he has brought and bring home the common sense system that worked for a century and a half.
I'm Jasmine Lane, and welcome to Over Opinionated. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. I know there are so many of you who watch all the time, but you don't actually subscribe. And I'm really trying to prove myself to my mom and dad here, okay? So if you could please just subscribe, it would go a long way. So something here seems very, very shady and corrupt. I'm just going to start with this headline from thecountersignal.com. It says, asylum shopping. 14,000 foreign students have applied for refugee status in Canada this year. Now that headline alone, if you know anything about refugees, asylum claimants, and also international students, just kind of signals some very big red flags, because traditionally, the only way that you can claim asylum, aka refugee status, is if you are fleeing your country because you fear persecution. That is the definition from the UN's refugee agency. So it seems really odd that you would come to Canada, pay to come to Canada, pay to go to school in Canada. Obviously, sometimes there are grants or scholarships or whatever that can help you out there. But 14,000 of these people who came here by their own choice, some years ago to pursue a greater education who clearly had malintent. And that alone has actually been pretty eye-opening as of late. Our immigration minister, Mark Miller, is starting to crack down on some of the loopholes in the student visa program, and also cracking down on some of the people who are not here to study at all. It was an easy way for them to get into the country. Some of them don't even actually go to school and never have. They just want to live in Canada.
What Mark Miller did was give us lip service. Let's be clear about that. It's a joke. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a joke. When you see that squinty eyes, you know, curling nose, that's the smell of his own underwear, I swear.
Fix your system. And if they had come here 9 years ago, I wouldn't have blamed them.
The pressure keeps ramping up for international students trying to make Canada a forever home. As Ottawa tightens the cap on study and work permits, students say they're being left in the dark with their future on the line.
We need to adjust accordingly.
Earlier this month, Ottawa announced it's limiting international study permits by another 10% next year, while also introducing tighter restrictions for obtaining work permits after graduation.
And a lot of students are kind of like left in the limbo. It's like, I don't know what my future now holds.
It's Ottawa's response to a Canada-wide housing shortage. But at the same time, Canada continues to hand out tens of thousands of what's called invitations to apply each year. That allows people from abroad to sign up for permanent residency. That means anyone, including working professionals. This month alone, there were nearly 6,000 invitations issued. Some groups argue if this many invitations to apply for permanent residency are still being given out to many foreign workers, then there shouldn't be policies that only target students.
And so it just seems really bizarre that now that Canada is starting to crack down, there's 14,000 of them that have applied for refugee status in Canada. To me, I immediately take this as just such a massive disrespect to the country that you are currently in. Like, clearly you do not respect us, our laws, or our policies, because if you did, you would go through the proper channel. If you came here as an international student, clearly you are not fleeing, and clearly you have money because you paid to come here, right? Now, I will give the Liberal immigration minister some props because he has finally started telling us the truth. And he says that most of the claims in Canada are being made falsely, which means that they're by people who in no way, shape, or form are anywhere close to even claiming asylum in the country. And these people know that. They're just trying to skirt the system, which, like I said, major red flag. If you don't respect us and you're trying to take advantage of us, maybe you should get wrecked.
This is the situation that they created. They miscalculated the how much immigrants they want. They miscalculated how much housing they have, how much they could accommodate over here, and now they are blaming all it on us. Even like the students, they bring money also.
Dude, when you go home because you've been human trafficked. That's what this is. These organizations, institutions, lobbyists, they all get paid by the government's legalized, legitimized, normalized human trafficking, because that is the rules that come from the overlords at the World Economic Forum, IMF, and UN and Davos and gang, right? This is the business model. It's all human trafficking, and I feel bad for these people that were lied to, were extorted, all of those things. But it's the government that is at fault. You are victims, yes. We should help you go home and fix it in your country, because that's where part of the problem is.
With them when they came here, like we did our initial investment, my tuition fee was 3 times what a Canadian would pay over here.
Now, after hearing the many conversations all over the media, all over X, I had this curiosity, and that was, well, wait a second, like, if you come here as a refugee, what does that even really mean? And this curiosity would go on to ruin my night. So according to a report released from Ottawa earlier this year, roughly $224 per day per claimant is what asylum seekers who are accepted get. $224 per day. That's a billion times more money than I make. I swear, if I could make $224 a day, they say money can't buy happiness, but I think it
That
could.
much
that
money will buy
equals
some
roughly
comfort.
$81,760 a year to asylum seekers. That is what they get. And the reason why they get that money is because
That's about 4 times more than 4 times more what I make in a year. And this is what these people are getting. And people wonder why and how these people that are out there defending faraway countries, how can they afford to do that all day, every day, $365 a year? Because they're making 82 grand a year as refugees, plus probably all of the rest of the perks, and probably plus getting their groceries from the food banks as well. This is the the reality of what Canada looks like right now. But that's $82,000. It would be beneficial for seniors to throw away their passports and go to a border point and claim refugee status in your own damn country. You will get looked after better than if you're a veteran or that if you're an average Canadian citizen. And she thinks she's over opinionated. I'll let her buck again for a little while, but that just kind of sets my hair on fire.
because that is the amount mathematically that the government has calculated out based on the cost of living, how much it would cost to actually get housing, food, and other essential items. So there in and of itself, we have our government admitting that the majority of Canadians, because the median income is somewhere to the tune of $51,000 to $54,000 a year, they're admitting that the majority of Canadians cannot even afford housing, food, and essential items. Canadians who are working sometimes multiple jobs in order to barely afford housing, food, and essential items and paying into the tax system, that tax money is going towards asylum seekers to give them more money than the Canadians who are paying into taxes make. That smells kind of funky. And just for funsies, let's do some math. So hypothetically speaking, let's say all 14,000 of those applications do in fact get approved. Realistically, this won't happen. But if they did, that would mean that over $1,144,640,000 of taxpayer money would be going to fund refugees in Canada so that they could live an easier, better lifestyle than the people paying into the tax system do.
How the hell is anyone existing in Canada? Like, I feel trapped. And like I just got a good job. I started in September, but even with that job, it pays less than 40 grand a year. And it's a job that requires like education. And even on that job, like I still can't do shit. I can't buy anything. I can't afford the rent these days. Like I don't have kids. I have like a good family that will support me, but it just, I feel like I can't stay here, but I can't move anywhere else because anywhere else I move to, I'm going to be charging like the landlords are just going to charge me like $2,500 a month in rent. Like at 33 years old, like I was really hoping that I could at the very least afford, you know, a small house. I don't want 3,100 square feet bullshit. I just want something small, 500 square feet, even less. And yet it's so fucking expensive. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do.
And then I have another huge bone to pick with this, and that is the fact that this is an amount, the $224 per day per claimant, that asylum seekers receive individually. Like that's their money. You could really do something with your life with that kind of money. Like that's a very good starting point. Don't get me wrong, it's expensive to live and exist in this country at the moment, but that is a good starting point for sure. I mean, I'm surviving somehow and I make like a fraction of that. Here's where the realization really started to ruin my day. We all know how much food bank usage has soared, how much homelessness has soared. It's been all over the news. It's been all over the House of Commons lately. You can see it every single time you leave your house. I'm willing to bet that things in Canada have gotten really bad. There are more people on the streets than ever before. Could you imagine the good it could do for our society and our culture, our happiness levels, if the federal government was willing to give individually people who are currently living on the streets, veterans living on the streets, homeless Canadian citizens living on the streets right now, if they would individually give those people money to help them, because as it stands, the federal government doesn't give any money to people who are homeless, not individually at least. How that portion of our population survives is that the federal government gives money to other organizations of which that community uses, like services and things like that. But it's not like if you lost your job and you can't afford to pay your bills anymore and you lose your home, and now suddenly you're on the street and you have nowhere to go, that you can just walk in somewhere and say, hey, here's my situation, and they'll go and give you a check so that you can afford, $224 a day. No, what they'll do is they'll refer you to other organizations and services that can help you, but not a single one of those
Signing off,
places
folks.
just gives you
Wanna
money.
keep
But could you
watching,
imagine how
definitely
absolutely
go
game
tune
changing
in
it would be if
on
our
X.
government
Go to What's Up
prioritized its own
Canadian.
people? I'm Jasmine
And
Lane.
so
Would
is
love
you.
to know your thoughts on all of this. How do you think that kind of
I've gotta
money
get-
could
I've
be
gotta
better
get moving
spent
here,
in
so
this country,
heading
or
back
even for
home. I'm going to be streaming live tomorrow morning.
Got any ideas on?
I'll be streaming live tomorrow morning doing market analysis, 7:15. More than welcome to join us. We'll be identifying a lot of the opportunities and how to identify opportunities within the crypto space. This is going to be less focused on the technical analysis, which is the background that I come from. We're not going to attach so much to the charts and what it is that those charts are telling us. We're going to be focusing more so on, well, what are the emerging industries, what are the emerging assets that are backing the fourth industrial revolution, and how can we position our funds to get the most out of that. And it's market analysis tomorrow morning, 7:15, and everybody have a good night.